Hello, I am Dr. Swastik and I welcome you to this course of Indian Polity on Central Government. In this course, we are comprehensively covering the portion of Indian polity demanded for UPSC, state PSCs and other competitive exams. In this course, we will cover the President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Council of Ministers, Parliament and Supreme Court. In our last lesson, we have covered the President. In this lesson, we will discuss powers of President. So a little bit about me. You can follow me on social media platforms. Links are below in the description. So let's start. The powers enjoyed and functions performed by Indian President can be studied under executive powers, legislative powers, financial powers, judicial powers, diplomatic powers, military powers and emergency powers. Coming to the executive power of the union government is vested in the president. All the executive actions of Government of India are formally taken in his name. Because the president may not discharge any administrative functions as there are ministries responsible for such act. This way, president becomes a formal head and actions are taken in his name. However, the president is not free to use his powers, rather he acts on the advice of Council of Ministers. The president has power to appoint and remove the high dignitaries of the state and they hold the office during pleasure of the president. He appoints the Prime Minister of India and other ministers of the Union, Attorney General of India, Controller and Auditor General of India, the judges of Supreme Court and the judges of High Court, Governor of a state, a commission to investigate interference with water supplies, the Finance Commission, the Union Public Service Commission and joint commissions for a group of states, the Chief Election Commissioner and other members of the Election Commission, Special Officer for Scheduled Caste and Tribes, Commission to report on the administration of scheduled areas, to investigate into conditions of backward classes and Commission on Official Language. He can also appoint a special officer for linguistic minorities. He can seek any information from the Prime Minister relating to the administrative affairs of the Union and proposals for legislation. He can appoint an interstate council to promote center-state and interstate cooperation. He directly administers the Union territories through the administrators appointed by him. Coming to the legislative powers, the president can summon or prorogue the houses of the parliament and dissolve the lower house. He can also summon a joint sitting of both houses of the parliament in case of a deadlock between them. He can address the parliament at the commencement of first session after each general election and the first session of each year. He can send messages to the house either in regard to any pending bill or to any other matter. He can appoint any member of the Lok Sabha to preside over its proceedings when the office of both Speaker and the Deputy Speaker is vacant. Similarly, he can appoint any member of the Rajya Sabha to preside over its proceedings when the office of both Chairman and Deputy Chairman is vacant. The President nominates 12 members of the Rajya Sabha from amongst persons having special knowledge or practical experience of literature, science, arts and social service. He also appoints 2 members to the Lok Sabha from the Anglo-Indian community if he is of the opinion that the Anglo-Indian community is not adequately represented in that house. He decides on question as to disqualification of members of the parliament in consultation with the Election Commission of India. He lays the reports of CAG, UPSC and Finance Commission before the parliament. His prior recommendation or permission is needed to introduce certain types of bill in the parliament. They are bills involving expenditure from the Consolidated Fund of India, bills for alteration of boundaries of the states and creation of new states. Coming to assent to legislation and veto power. When a bill is presented to the president after it has been passed by the parliament, he can give his assent to the bill withhold his assent to the bill or return the bill for reconsideration of the parliament. A money bill cannot be returned for reconsideration because it is presented with the prior recommendation of the president. Now, if the bill is passed again by the parliament with or without amendment, it would be obligatory upon him to declare his assent to it. A bill is passed by the parliament can become an act only if it receives the assent of the president. But the president can withhold his assent to the bill or return the bill for reconsideration of the parliament. Thus, the president has veto powers over bills passed by the parliament that he can withhold his assent to the bill. The main objective of this power is to prevent hasty and ill-considered legislation by the parliament and to prevent the legislation which may be unconstitutional. The President of India is vested with three veto powers. Absolute veto, it refers to the power of the President to withhold his assent to a bill passed by the Parliament. The bill then ends and does not become an act. Second one is suspensive veto. The President exercises this when he returns a bill for reconsideration to the Parliament. However, if this bill is again passed by the Parliament with or without amendment, it is obligatory for the President to give his assent. This means the presidential veto can be overridden by a repassage of a bill with same ordinary majority. Coming to pocket veto, in this case, the President neither ratifies nor rejects nor returns the bill but simply keeps the bill pending for indefinite period. The President can exercise pocket veto because the Constitution does not prescribe any time limit within which he has to take decision with respect to a bill presented to him for assent. The President can also return a bill of state legislature for reconsideration which may have been reserved for his consideration by the governor of that state. But it is not obligatory for him to give his assent even if the bill is again passed by the state legislature. This means the presidential veto cannot be overridden by a simple repassage. He can make regulations for peace, progress and good government of Andaman Nicobar Island, Lakshadweep, Dadra Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu. In case of Puducherry, the president can legislate but only when the assembly is suspended or dissolved. Coming to the ordinance making power of president, he can promulgate ordinances when the parliament is not in session. These ordinances must be approved by the parliament within 6 weeks of reassembly. He can make ordinances when he is satisfied that the circumstances exist that render it necessary for him to take immediate action. However, the Supreme Court says the president's satisfaction can be questioned on the ground of mala fide. Coming to financial powers, money bill can be introduced in the parliament only with its prior recommendation. He causes to be laid before the parliament the annual financial statement or the union budget. He can make advances out of the contingency fund of India to meet any unforeseen expenditure. He constitutes finance commission after every 5 years to recommend distribution of revenue between center and state. Coming to judicial power, he appoints the Chief Justice and the judges of Supreme Courts and High Courts. He can seek advice from the Supreme Court on any question of law or fact. However, the advice tendered by the Supreme Court is not binding on the President. He can grant pardon, reprieve, respite and remission of punishment or suspend, remit or commute the sentence of any person convicted in any offence. This includes offences against our union law, punishment or sentence by court-martial, and in all cases where the sentence is a sentence of death. So what is pardon? It removes both sentence and conviction and completely absolves the convict from all sentences, punishments and disqualifications. What is commutation? It denotes the substitution of one form of punishment to a lighter form. For example, a death sentence can be commuted into rigorous imprisonment. What is remission? It implies reducing the period of sentence without changing its character. What is respite? It denotes awarding a lesser sentence in place of one originally awarded due to some special fact like physical disability or pregnancy. Reprieve. It implies a stay on the execution of a sentence, especially that of a death. Coming to the diplomatic powers, all the international treaties and agreements are concluded on behalf of the President. However, they are subject to final approval of the Parliament. He represents India in international forums and sends and receives diplomats like ambassadors and high commissioners. Coming to military powers, he is the supreme commander of the defense forces of India. He appoints the chiefs of army, navy and air forces. He can declare war or conclude peace subject to the approval of Parliament. Coming to the emergency powers, the Constitution confers extraordinary powers on the President to deal with emergencies, national emergency under Article 352, President's rule under Article 356 and 365, and financial emergency under Article 360. So that's all for this lesson. Thank you and have a nice day.